Hi, I'm Algianolis from the Horse Race Advantage Company. Today we will be talking about the allowance races, which is the second step after maiden races in the condition book. In our first video we talked about the condition book, and in our second video we talked about the maiden races. Today we will be talking about the allowance races and the type of information that one should consider when handicapping allowance races. I hope you will enjoy this. It will enhance your understanding and your handicapping and wagering experience. And most of this information has actually been considered in our ranking algorithms, so that the rigor of actually handicapping has been alleviated, so you do not have to spend all this time and energy to actually figure out certain allowance company races. So I hope you will enjoy this particular video.
Let's take a look at the allowance races. What are allowance races? They are races for horses that have won at least one race. In other words, they broke their maiden. There are two types of allowance races. There's the allowance straight allowance race, and then there are the allowance optional claimers. And there's also actually the starter allowances. But it's the first step up the condition ladder after a maiden win. And unless the horse is so good that the trainer feels that he can actually skip a particular step on the ladder and maybe go to a stakes race directly from a maiden win. The allowance races are written for all types of track surfaces and distances, and the track handicapper will write additional eligibility requirements that are found in the condition book in order for a horse to be entered. And for example, you'll find horses non-winners of a specific date or a specific price that he ran. So there are special eligibility requirements that the track handicapper can put into the condition. Now, with respect to handicapping, horses that just won their maiden seldom win when moved up into allowance races. And that is understandable because they are facing tougher competition. He or she is facing horses that have already won and are now moved into a class by themselves, and the classes all horses have won, and so some horses have already gotten several belts in that particular class. They are starting to improve and move forward, and they may actually come in before horses that just moved in from the maiden class. However, having said that, consider if the horse won by several lengths, i.e. greater than 5 lengths, and he or she had a very strong gallop out, the horse should be considered to be in the money, especially if this horse won the first time out and if his or her buyer rating is above or around the 70 and stays on the same surface and distance. So what you're saying here is that he pretty much stays in the same type of environmental conditions, and he also had a very good buyer rating to actually be moved up into class, the allowance class. So on the allowance optional claimer, you will find a mix of horses that can be claimed, i.e. they're running for a tag or a prize, and horses that cannot be claimed. Now, when you look at an optional claimer, the presumption then is that horses without a tag are better than horses with a tag, because why would an owner or a trainer lose his horse when he thinks he's a pretty good horse? No, the horses that can actually make money for an owner and trainer, those are the horses that generally they want to hold on to. And so the presumption then is that horses that do not run with a tag are better horses. And the claiming prices vary, so you have to look at that too. So it's not just this horse is running in an allowance optional claimer. you also have to look at the price of the claiming price, i.e. a claiming price of $16,000 is a lot less than a claiming price of $65,000. So the presumption here is that horses with a higher claiming price are better horses, unless the price difference is very small, and then you can somewhat ignore that. How to handicap allowance races. Allowance. In an allowance race, no horse can be claimed. So therefore, the presumption is horses running in a straight allowance are better horses than running in an allowance optional claimer. Now, each time a horse wins, he's moved up a level, i.e. he's moved from a non-winners 1 to a non-winners 2 to a stakes race to a graded stakes race. And of course, if he's very good, then he's moved straight into a stakes race. However, the stakes race still identifies the conditions that a particular horse can be entered. So if the horse, even though he has won and a trainer or an owner wants to enter him or her into a stakes race, that does not mean that the horse can be entered. The conditions describe whether he is eligible to be entered. Each time a horse is moved up a level, a condition, he faces tougher competition. And so the buyer rating is a quick indicator whether he will fit into a particular level. Look at the age factor. 3-year-olds running against 3 and up. It means that there are some horses that are maybe 4 years old, 5 years old, and 6 years old. It means that, generally speaking, the 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds are stronger horses. So when a 3-year-old runs against these type of horses, you do have to take a look at the age of the horse, but also most of the times you will find that the older horses will have to carry a higher weight, and so they are being handicapped. Look for a change in class, in other words, allowance into allowance optional claimer, or a stakes into an allowance. An allowance optional claimer is generally a little lesser race than just a straight allowance, and going from a stakes into an allowance is sometimes considered a drop in class. A change in claiming price, check to see if the claiming price is going up or down. It tells you whether the horse is getting to be at a point where maybe he can actually win when he drops in class. A drop from allowance into a straight claimer. You still have to take a look at the price that the allowance race was run in and the straight claimer. So an allowance 20,000 is not the same thing as a claimer 20,000. So there's a slight difference there, and so the straight claimer for a 20,000 tag is generally lesser than allowance race. Look for a change in track surface and distance. If the surface is if you change from turf to dirt, or from dirt to turf, and generally speaking, when it changes from a synthetic track to a turf track, sometimes the horse does just as well. Check to see if the distance, if the horse didn't quite finish in a long race, maybe he needed a shorter race, or maybe needed a longer race. Also check the change in trainers and jockeys. In the allowance races, also look at the speed rating, the buyer ratings, and the track ratings, and check on the running style. When the running style is coming from behind, or coming from the middle of the pack, or whether he's a front runner, and then check those against the other horses, the running styles of the other horses in the same race. Change in tracks, like I said before, if he went from a big track to a small track, and he stays at the same level, like for instance a maiden special weight to a maiden special weight from Aqueduct to Belmont to Suffolk Downs, that may actually be a drop in class, even though the maiden special weight is the same class level. Look for a small track to a big track. That is generally considered a move up. Also check to see open competition versus state bred. The state breds have less competition, and the open competition generally has better competition, so it's more difficult to actually win or be in the money in an open race versus a state bred race restricted to state breds. So let's go to Aqueduct, November 25th, 2011, and take a look at an allowance race. This is claiming maiden claiming race. Here's an allowance race at 1 mile and an allowance optional claiming. Notice in the allowance optional claiming that this horse or any of these horses can be entered with a price tag of $25,000, meaning that this horse can be purchased prior to the race for $25,000. Let's go to the allowance race here. In a 6th race, purse $53,000. And for fillies and mares 3-year-old and upward, which have never won a race other than a maiden, claiming, starter, or restricted, or which have never won 2 races. The weight that they have to carry as a 3-year-old is 121 pounds, and if they're older, it's 122 pounds. Notice that they can get a weight concession of 2 pounds if they're non-winners of 24,000 at a mile or over since September 25th. And the condition says that races were entered for 50,000 or less are not considered in this particular race, and so you would not be able to enter this horse if that was the case. Okay, the distance is 1 mile on the dirt. And now take a look at the allowance optional claiming. The allowance optional claiming is for New York breds. Okay, the purse is $44,000, and it is for fillies and mares 3-year-olds and upward foaled in New York State, and approved by the New York State Bred Registry, which have never won 2 races other than maiden. Now, this is also a claiming price of $25,000. Notice that the entry for fillies and mares 3-year-old and upward, for fillies and mares 3-year-old and upward, this one is for New York State breds. This is open competition. And so generally speaking, the competition in state bred races is less. And so it's a little easier to actually win or be in the money in these type of races. This particular race is a 1 mile, and this particular race is 6.5 furlongs. Okay, so let's take a look at this particular race here. 6th race allowance company. I'm looking at the Formulator, which is the past performance for Aqueduct, using daily racing form. And the first race in Aqueduct is a 6.5 furlong. Optional claimer for $25,000, non-winners of 2 with a purse of $44,000. It's for fillies and mares 3 years old and upward, foaled in New York State. So these are restricted to New York State bred horses. Okay. So let's take a quick look here. You notice that there's a lot of past performance, and this is typical when you have 3 years old and up. Okay, so this is a chestnut filly, 3 years old. She's by Tail of the Cat, who stood for $30,000. So now take a look at the, because you have so much more past performance, you have to pay attention to this condition over here. So the 6.5 furlong, three-year-old filly, and she may actually run against an older filly, like the second horse, which is a 4-year-old filly. Okay, so going back over here, this horse ran, say, the last since August 11th. It had a breeze here, 5 furlong, 4 furlong. It did a 4 furlong in 48, which is not bad. And then it ran at Saratoga, August 31, and came in second. Now notice how she ran here, from 7th, 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 and then she came in second by 10 lengths. So this particular horse came from the back. Okay, now she ran a 6 furlong, and on September 22nd, 3 weeks later, she ran a 6 furlongs again, and she ran a 72 by rating from 62. I mean, she improved, and she came from the middle of the pack, and she came in second, but then came in third, really. Okay. She ran a 72 rated race and improved her by rating. Next one is at a 6.5 furlong, which is about 3 weeks later again, and it's an optional claimer, 25. So she's staying at the same level, and she ran about the same buyer rating, and she came from the middle of the pack and came in second. And notice that she's first, and she seems to lose here in a stretch. Okay, so the next one out, she goes to 7 furlong, but she goes to turf. She changes track surface, and she stays at the same level, optional claimer. But notice the price goes up. So they're trying her. They don't want to lose her. But if they're going to lose it, they're going to get little extra money. So they're trying her on the turf here, and they're going a little longer. They're still staying on winners of 2, and she gets the same buyer rating with a different jockey, Solis. But notice, she's not coming out of the gate as fast, and she's not closing very well. So she ran as an entry here with another horse. And she got a speed rating of 68, which is not as good as these speeding ratings over here that she had on the dirt. So what are they doing? This was a yielding turf. Okay, so on November 16th, she ran in a slop, and she ran a mile, going a longer distance, and they dropped her from the 50K, 50,000 optional claimer, into a 35,000 optional claimer. And notice that in the slop, she didn't like that, and she ran a lower buyer rating, and her lowest speed rating here in the last 5 races or so. She ran with 115, and went off as 7-1. In other words, the public thought that by dropping in class, she may actually do a little better, but she didn't. And but that may also have been contributed to the slop here. She did come out of the gate pretty good, and but she didn't finish very well. So now we're November 16, and now we're November 25th, and we're taking a look at her, and she's staying at the distance a mile. She's dropping back into optional claim of 25,000 with a purse of 44, and she's getting the same jockey. So the question is, by dropping her to the level that she was racing before, 25,000, 25,000, 25,000, and she was coming in second, third, and second here at the 25,000 level. Now with the extra distance of from 6.5 furlongs, 6 furlongs, and back on the dirt, is she going to win? Okay, at 6.5 furlongs. So they're dropping her back in the 6.5 furlongs, and they're also dropping her back in the same class. So she's back in this class after being tried on the turf, and after they've tried her on at a bigger distance. So the question is, will she come in second or third, or will she actually actually win this race? Okay. So the next one, let's take a look at the next one, Lady Grace Note. She's a year older now, and see here it shows that they're not willing to have this filly being purchased or claimed by anybody. In this particular case, since this is an optional claimer, this particular owner, J.S. Baker, doesn't mind if this horse gets claimed or purchased for $25,000. This is a 4-year-old filly. Remember that most of the fillies get get sent to the breeding shed after they're about 5 years old, unless they do really well. Okay, so this particular one. Also notice this particular horse, Lady Vi, she made $161,000 in 12 lifetime starts, and she came in first twice, she came in second four times, and she came in third 4 times. So if one were to look at the average earnings, you divide 12 into 161,000, and that's 40. It's about 13,000, roughly speaking, okay, per race. And then you can also look over here. In 2011, she made 70,000 in 10 starts. And in 2010, she made 91,000 in 2 starts. So this horse is actually going backwards. Even though her buy ratings seem to go up, money-wise, she's actually running in lesser class. Notice this? Because here she made 45,000 in 2 starts, and here she made 10 into 77,000 per start on the average. Okay, so when they go back in average earnings per year, that's an indicator that they're not going to improve. What you're really looking for is a horse that's improving. Okay, really quick on the race note. Here, this particular horse is a brown ear filly, and so she's a year older, and she's competing against this horse that's 3-year-old. So here, now, this horse made 154,000 in 20 lifetime starts, and 13 times in 2011 for 101. So 3 and 13 into 101 is 7. So 7,000, and then here she went 6 into 48 is what, 8,000. So this horse is staying about the same. And so you can compare this horse against, as far as average earnings, with that particular horse over there. This horse is a claimer, and this horse is a 6 furlong on November the 4th, and came in 4th. He came from behind and came in 4th and 2 1/4. He ran an 83 speed rating with a 71 buyer rating. This horse, you have to pay attention to, because this horse on October 22nd ran a 7 furlong in the Iroquois Stakes, okay, with 125,000. So this horse ran in very good competition here, but he didn't do very well. 61 speed rating, buy rating, but a 75 buy rating. He ran 6 by 12 lengths, and so he didn't finish. He was really outclassed. Now I can understand why they tried that. Is because on October the 6th, she ran a 7 furlong, and in an option claim of 50,000, no winners of 1. And she came in 1st, okay, with Espinosa. She didn't run a very high buyer rating, but it was an improving buyer rating from her 51. 51 to 66 is 15. And she came from behind, and she closed really, really good here. She was here second by 6 by 6 lengths, and she closed really good and came in 1st, okay. Now, she went off from 21 to 8, carried 121. She's carrying 122 today, and her buyer rating was speed rating was 77. Now, notice that her speed rating is 83 here for her last rating, and her buyer rating was also 71, and so she actually improved upon what she did over here at the 51, and she improved over here. Now she actually dropped in class from the Iroquois to the optional claimer, okay, and you can see the odds went down too, because they said, well, if she's moving into an optional claimer from a stakes race, she may actually do something, okay. And she didn't do anything, but she also changed tracks here. Some horses like certain tracks and other horses don't. So here you have on 22 October, Belmont, and in the second race, she ran a 7 furlong. And on November the 4th, she ran a 6 furlong. And on November 20th, 5 days ago, she ran a short work. She had a short work, 3 furlongs on the training track, and she had a bullet work of 36.3. In other words, this horse could potentially win it, except she comes from behind, and she hasn't really shown anything that says that she can win this optional claim at 25. She's running for a tag. Gary Contessa is, it's a fairly good, trainer. But it's not very likely that this horse is going to come in because his running style is coming from behind. Unless she has perfect trip, she's not going to win. She doesn't have that quick turn of foot in order to actually come out ahead there. Now, quickly looking at this particular race, Yoky Away. It was a collar breeder sale in March, a filly that was purchased for $165,000 with Grand Slam, whose stud fee was $15,000. When we look at his earnings, in his lifetime earnings, he ran 8 times, and 5 times he was in the money, and he made about $20,000, a little less than $20,000 per race. In 2011, she ran 4 times, and she made about $5,000 a race. In 2010, she ran 4 times, and she made $18,000 per race. So she was actually making more money in her 2010 year than in her 2011. So this horse is not really moving in the right direction. And you like to look for a horse that's moving in the right direction. Now, look over here. Lascano has got 0.5%. Doesn't seem right. And then Chet Brown, he is a very good trainer. See that? 23%. And when you have to look at what you have to look at now, let's see, the last were in November, in August, and in June. She ran Saratoga. She ran an option claim at 25, no minutes of 2. And with La Perouse, she had a 76 rated race, 76 buy rating. And she, comes from the middle of the pack and came in second by a neck. And she had an 88 speed rating. Okay, Saratoga, August 31, she ran a 6 furlong, option claimer, 25,000 on minutes of 2, and she actually went backwards and had a 46 buyer rating. Okay, and you can see that she must have had trouble here. She ran 4 wide and urged on the turn, and apparently she didn't fire. So they, on August 31 until November the 4th, that's September and October, she didn't do anything. She just trained. She breezed. Okay, and she had one nice bullet work here on 4 furlong, four furlong at Saratoga at the training track, and came in here first out of 16. And her breezes are actually, fairly good. I mean, she actually has 2 breezes here with the bullet works. That's a 48.3, and that's fairly good. So all her breezes have been fairly good. I mean, if the 4 furlong at the 50, around the 50, that is slower. These works are fairly good. Okay, I mean, they're not the fastest, but they're fairly good. And the fact that she has 2 bullets, that says something too. What also says something is November the 4th, she ran a 6 furlong and 73, and she's coming back. She's improving off her last race. And so with Chet Brown's 23% in the money, it's very likely that this horse is actually going to be in the money. Okay, so that's how you actually handicap a particular allowance optional claiming race.
This concludes the video on stakes races. It is the 3rd in a series of videos that provides insight into the handicapping that is being done and is being considered in our ranking information that we provide on our website, horseraceadvantage.com. The allowance races, as I mentioned in our video, consist of two types: the straight allowance race, and then there's the allowance optional races, optional claiming races. I hope that will enhance your handicapping and wagering experience and provides insight into some of the factors that one would have to consider. In addition to that, we will be talking about stakes races that I will talk to in our next video, and I hope you will come and join us again. Thank you.